She was a bargain bride, but her human husband wanted her heart, not her body. The price of peace. The obsidian council chamber of the Thalari homeworld gleamed under twin suns, casting sharp shadows across the faces of 7 ancient warriors. Vaelra Kethmer stood motionless in their center, her silver-streaked auburn hair braided in traditional war knots. Though she knew this battle was already lost, the humans demand a bride, growled Elder Thane Voctor, his scarred face twisted with distaste. Their primitive customs require blood bonds to seal treaties. It is distasteful, but necessary. Vaelra's jaw tightened. She had spent 15 years proving her worth as a military strategist, only to be reduced to a bargaining chip around her. The council members avoided her gaze, all except her father, Warlord Kethmer, whose eyes burned with something between shame and pragmatism. The Terran Republic's fleet grows stronger, he said quietly. Our scouts report new weapon technologies. We cannot afford another war, and so you offer me. Vaelra stated, her voice steady despite the fury building in her chest. Elder Zephyra, the only female council member, leaned forward. You have no mate bond, no offspring to consider. Your strategic mind, while adequate, has not prevented 3 consecutive defeats against human forces. Perhaps serving the peace will be your greatest contribution to our people. The words stung because they held truth. Vaelra had orchestrated brilliant defensive campaigns, but the humans' unpredictable tactics had consistently outmaneuvered traditional Thalari warfare. Where her people valued honor and direct confrontation, the humans employed deception, diplomacy, and emotional manipulation, weapons the Thalari considered beneath them. Who is the human? She asked. Commander Elias Wren, her father replied. Their chief diplomatic attaché. He negotiated the preliminary terms himself. The marriage ceremony will take place on the neutral station Concordia in 7 cycles. Vaelra nodded curtly. 7 days to prepare for a life of servitude. She had studied human customs during the war. Their concept of marriage involved submission, possession, and the production of offspring. The husband owned the wife's body, her choices, her very identity. I accept, she said, because refusal wasn't truly an option. The survival of her people depended on this alliance. As the council dismissed her, Vaelra walked through the corridors of her childhood home, memorizing every carved symbol, every battle standard. Her younger brother Corin found her in the armory, polishing her ceremonial blade, a weapon she would never wield in battle again. You don't have to do this, he whispered, his voice cracking with adolescent emotion. At 16, he still believed in honor over necessity. Yes, I do. She tested the blade's edge against her thumb, drawing a thin line of violet blood. But I won't go defenseless. If this human thinks he's purchasing a docile breeder, he'll discover otherwise. 3 days later, aboard the transport vessel Thalvin, Vaelra studied intelligence reports about her future husband, Commander Elias Wren, 34 standard years, decorated veteran of 3 conflicts, known for unconventional negotiation tactics. The file mentioned his refusal to take prisoners during the Battle of Kepler. Station was this mercy or cruelty? With humans, the distinction seemed meaningless. Her aide, Lieutenant Voxenal, approached cautiously. Honored strategist, the human station appears on sensors. Through the viewport, Concordia gleamed like a silver jewel against the void. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species docked at its ports, a testament to the humans' talent for building bridges between incompatible cultures. Soon, she would become another bridge, another compromise. Vaelra straightened her formal robes, the deep purple fabric marking her as a daughter of the warrior caste. Hidden within the ceremonial layers, she carried 3 small knives and a poison capsule. If her new husband proved too brutal, she would choose her own end rather than endure humiliation. The docking clamps engaged with a metallic shriek. Through the airlock, she could hear human voices, efficient, businesslike, alien. Soon, she would meet the man who had purchased her freedom and her future. Whatever happened next, Vaelra Kethmer would face it as a warrior, even if the battlefield was now a marriage bed. The unexpected groomed ceremonial hall aboard Concordia Station buzzed with diplomatic tension. Representatives from 23 species had gathered to witness the historic union between Thalari and human. Though Vailra suspected most came to observe potential weaknesses in both civilizations, she stood at the altar's edge, encased in traditional wedding armor, polished obsidian plates over crimson silk. With ceremonial blades at her hips, the human delegation whispered among themselves as she entered, their pale faces unreadable. At their center stood a tall man with dark hair and surprisingly gentle brown eyes. Commander Elias Wren looked nothing like the warriors of her people. Where Thalari men were broad and scarred, built for conquest, this human appeared scholarly, lean, but not weak, with calloused hands that suggested intellectual rather than physical labor. His dress uniform bore minimal decorations, though Vailra recognized several commendations for strategic brilliance. Honored daughter of Thalari, he said, bowing in the traditional greeting she had never expected a human to know. His pronunciation was nearly perfect. I am Elias Wren. Thank you for this sacrifice. The word sacrifice struck her oddly. In Thalari culture, marriage was conquest, the claiming of genetic legacy and social status. This human spoke as if he understood the true cost of her presence here. The ceremony proceeded with mechanical precision. Vailra recited ancient vows of loyalty, while Elias promised protection and provision in standard galactic. When the Concordia magistrate pronounced them bound under interstellar law, neither reached for the other. The traditional wedding kiss was replaced by a formal handshake that felt more like a military treaty signing. At the reception, Vailra endured hours of political small talk, her translator earpiece filtering dozens of languages into incomprehensible babble. She noticed her new husband watching her throughout, but not with the possessive hunger she had expected. His gaze held something else, curiosity, perhaps concern. Are you tired? He asked during a lull between diplomatic congratulations. The question startled her. When did masters ask servants about comfort? I am adequate, she replied carefully. That's not what I asked. His smile was warm, unfamiliar. You've been standing for hours in ceremonial armor. Would you like to sit? Before she could respond, he guided her to a quieter alcove where junior diplomatic staff had arranged comfortable seating. The relief of sitting was immediate, though she tried not to show weakness. Better, he asked, settling beside her but maintaining careful distance. Why do you ask about my comfort? The words escaped before she could stop them. Elias paused, considering. Because you're a person, not a diplomatic document. Because the situation must be overwhelming, and pretending otherwise helps no one. Vailra studied his face for deception, but found only sincerity. You are unexpected. So are you. Your tactical analysis of the Proxima engagement was brilliant. I've been studying your strategies for months. Heat flooded her cheeks, the Thalari equivalent of blushing. You know my work. I requested everything the intelligence division had on Thalari military leadership. Your defensive innovations cost us 3 major victories. I've been trying to understand how you think. This was the last conversation she had expected. Humans were supposed to be simple, brutal, focused on physical dominance. This one spoke of her mind as if it mattered more than her body. I suppose now you'll use that knowledge against my people, she said, testing him. Actually, I was hoping you might help me find solutions that benefit both our civilizations. Military conflicts waste resources neither of us can afford. The reception continued around them, but Vailra felt suspended in this strange moment of actual conversation. When Elias suggested they retire to their assigned quarters, she followed with the mechanical obedience of a good soldier facing execution. Their suite was luxurious by station standards to rooms connected by a common area, with separate sleeping quarters. Vailra had expected a single bed and immediate consummation. Instead, Elias gestured toward the smaller room. That's yours, if you'd prefer privacy. The door locks from the inside. She stared at him. You don't intend to claim your rights. I don't have rights to claim. You're here under duress, fulfilling a political obligation. I won't add assault to your burdens. The word assault hung between them. In Thalari culture, wedding night consumption was duty, not violence, but this human understood something her own people had never acknowledged, that consent couldn't be legislated or purchased. I don't understand you, she whispered. That's okay. We have time to figure each other out. He moved toward his own room, then paused. Vailra, thank you. I know this isn't what you chose. Alone in her quarters, she removed the ceremonial armor. Piece by piece, each plate representing another assumption proven wrong. Whatever game this human was playing, she couldn't identify his strategy. And for the first time in years, that uncertainty felt less like defeat than possibility. Breaking barriers 3 weeks aboard the diplomatic vessel Harmony's Edge had established an uncomfortable routine. Valra rose at dawn for combat exercises. Elias reviewed treaty documents over coffee, and they shared meals in polite, careful conversation. Neither had attempted to breach the invisible walls surrounding their strange marriage. Valra found herself studying her husband with a strategist's eye. He worked 18-hour days, spoke 4 languages fluently, and displayed an uncanny ability to find compromise between opposing viewpoints. His staff clearly respected him, seeking his opinion on matters far beyond his official authority. Yet with her, he remained almost painfully courteous, a courtesy that was beginning to feel like indifference. "Are you avoiding me?" she asked one evening, finding him alone in the observation deck. Elias looked up from his data pad, surprised. "I was trying to give you space. Your culture values independence. My culture values directness. If you find my presence burdensome, say so." He set aside his work entirely, something she had never seen him do. "Valra, you're the most fascinating person I've ever met. I'm avoiding you because I'm trying not to be the selfish human who takes advantage of a political arrangement." The honesty struck her like a physical blow. In Thalari society, emotions were weapons to be concealed. This human wielded his feelings like tools for connection. "What would taking advantage look like?" she asked, genuinely curious. "Pushing for intimacy you don't want, expecting you to play the grateful wife, using your intelligence for human benefit without considering your own goals." He paused, running fingers through his dark hair. "Making you responsible for my emotional needs when you didn't choose any of this." Valra settled into the chair beside him, processing this unexpected vulnerability. Through the viewport, stars streamed past in hyperspace, creating patterns that reminded her of Thalari meditation forms. "I chose to honor the agreement," she said finally. "But I didn't choose isolation." "What do you mean? You treat me like fragile cargo." "I'm a warrior, Elias. I've commanded fleets, survived assassination attempts, negotiated with species that consider Thalari barely sentient. Your protection feels like dismissal." He was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry. I thought I was being respectful. Respect would be treating me as an equal partner in this arrangement, not a victim to be shielded." She turned to face him fully. "What do you want from this marriage?" The question seemed to surprise him. "I want to understand you. I want to build something genuine instead of just fulfilling diplomatic obligations. I want..." He hesitated. "I want you to choose to be here, not just endure it. And if I choose to leave, then I'll help you leave. There are protocols for diplomatic divorce, ways to maintain the alliance without personal sacrifice." His willingness to release her should have felt liberating. Instead, it sparked something unexpected: curiosity about what staying might look like. "Show me your work," she said impulsively. "What? The treaty negotiations, the strategic planning. You say you want my intelligence, prove it." Elias activated his data pad, pulling up complex diplomatic charts. For the next 3 hours, they analyzed trade agreements, defense pacts, and cultural exchange programs. Valra found herself genuinely engaged, offering perspectives that made Elias's eyes light up with excitement. "The Thalari Council would never accept direct military integration," she said, "studying troop deployment schedules, but joint training exercises under the guise of cultural exchange. Brilliant. That bypasses their pride while building practical cooperation." He was leaning closer now, caught up in collaborative problem solving. "What about resource sharing? Frame it as competitive advantage. My people respect strength, not charity." They worked until ship's night cycle, ideas flowing between them with increasing ease. Valra realized she was enjoying herself, truly enjoying intellectual partnership for the first time since leaving home. "This is what marriage could be," Elias said softly as they finally prepared to part ways. "Partnership, collaboration, choosing each other every day. Is that what you want?" She asked. Double quotes, yes, but only if it's what you want to do. Standing in the corridor between their separate quarters, Vela felt the weight of genuine choice for the first time in months. She could retreat to safety, maintain the careful distance that protected her heart, or she could risk something more dangerous than any battle, the possibility of actually caring for this unexpected man. Tomorrow, show me the cultural files, she said. I want to understand human customs beyond the political arrangements. His smile was radiant. I'd like that. As she entered her quarters, Vela realized the walls she had built around her heart were beginning to develop cracks. Whether that was victory or defeat remained to be seen. Dangerous affection they attempt on their lives came during a routine diplomatic dinner on Kepler Station. Vela's warrior instincts saved them both. She tackled Elias to the floor as energy bolts seared the air where his head had been. In the chaos that followed, she fought with lethal precision while he coordinated evacuation procedures, their different strengths complementing each other perfectly. Later, in the secured medical bay, Vela cleaned a minor cut on Elias's temple while security forces questioned witnesses. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the realization that she had acted to protect him without thinking. When had his safety become more important than her own? Thank you, he said quietly as she sealed the wound. You saved my life. We saved each other, she corrected. Your evacuation protocol prevented a massacre. Still, you put yourself at risk for me. Yes, the admission hung between them, loaded with implications neither wanted to examine too closely. The investigation revealed the attack had been orchestrated by extremist factions, from both species: humans who viewed the alliance as weakness, and Thalari who saw any cooperation as betrayal. Their marriage had become a symbol that threatened xenophobic ideologies on both sides. We should separate, Vela said that night, staring out at the stars from their temporary quarters. The marriage served its diplomatic purpose, maintaining. It only makes us targets. Is that what you want? Elias asked. The question had become familiar between them, his constant checking for her genuine desires rather than assumed obligations. Tonight, it felt more loaded than usual. What I want is irrelevant. What matters is strategic advantage, Vela. He moved closer, not touching but close enough that she could feel his warmth. What do you want? She closed her eyes, fighting against emotions her people had trained her to suppress. I want to stay with you. I want to build something real instead of just political theater. I want, her voice cracked, I want to choose you, not just endure an arrangement, then stay. It's not that simple. The attacks will continue. Our peoples may never accept this alliance. We could be fighting extremists for the rest of our lives, then we fight together. His hand covered hers on the windowsill. I'd rather face danger with you than safety without you. The touch sent electricity through her entire nervous system. In 6 months of marriage, he had never presumed physical contact. Now, the simple gesture felt more intimate than any traditional wedding night. Elias, she whispered. I love you, he said simply. I know that complicates everything, makes the politics messier, gives our enemies another weapon to use against us. But I needed you to know. Thalari didn't have direct translations for human concepts of romantic love. Their language spoke of genetic compatibility, strategic partnerships, and territorial bonds. But standing in this borrowed room on a neutral station, Vela finally understood what humans meant by the word. My people don't believe in love, she said. What do you believe? She turned to face him fully, studying the face that had become dear to her, the intelligent brown eyes, the gentle hands that had never demanded what wasn't offered, the mouth that spoke her name like a prayer. I believe in choice, she said. I believe in partnership. I believe in fighting beside someone who sees your mind as well as your body. She reached up to touch his cheek. I believe in you. When he kissed her, it wasn't the claiming of treaty rights, but the asking of a question her entire body answered with enthusiasm. Later, lying in his arms in the narrow station bed, Vela realized she had never felt so simultaneously vulnerable and safe. What happens now? She asked. Now we figure out how to build a life together while revolutionizing interspecies relations, he said, pressing a kiss to her hair. Just a typical Tuesday. She laughed, something she had done more in 6 months with him than in 30 years among her own people. The extremists won't stop. Both our governments may disavow us if the alliance becomes too controversial. Then we'll find somewhere new. There are colonies that welcome mixed species couples. Places where our children could grow up seeing cooperation instead of conflict. Children, the word sent a thrill of terror and longing through her. If you want them, if you want any of this. His arms tightened around her. Everything is still your choice, Velra, always. Outside their window, ships from dozens of species moved through the station's traffic patterns, a testament to the possibility of cooperation between different worlds. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats to their fragile happiness. But tonight, in the circle of his arms, Velra allowed herself to imagine a future built on love instead of obligation. For the first time since leaving her homeworld, she was exactly where she chose to be. Love's victory. 1 year later, Velra stood before the Joint Species Council on Concordia Station, her diplomatic credentials finally reflecting her true role as interspecies liaison rather than political bargaining chip. Beside her, Elias presented their proposal for the first permanent mixed-species colony, a world where children of different origins could grow up seeing diversity as strength rather than threat. The proposal had taken months to develop, requiring delicate negotiations with 23 different governments. Some species worried about genetic contamination, others about cultural erosion. The extremist attacks had continued, forcing them to live under constant security protection. Yet here they stood, united not just in marriage but in purpose. The colony would be completely voluntary, Velra explained to the assembled delegates, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had found her true calling. Families from any species could apply, but all residents would agree to raise their children with multicultural education and peaceful conflict resolution. Elder Thane Voctor, representing the Thalari Council, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Her father had tried to recall her twice, calling the colony project a betrayal of species purity. Velra had respectfully declined, pointing out that her marriage contract gave her legal independence under interstellar law. The proposed location offers adequate resources for sustainable development, she continued, and its position near major trade routes would make it economically viable within 5 years. When the formal presentation ended, the delegates dispersed into smaller groups for private discussions. Velra noticed the human representative from Earth's conservative faction, speaking urgently with several allies probably organizing opposition to the proposal. Worried, Elias asked, joining her near the observation windows. Strategically concerned, she corrected with a smile, but not worried. We've built something they can't tear down with politics. It was true. Over the past year, their marriage had become a symbol of successful integration. They had co-authored 3 major diplomatic treaties, established educational exchange programs, and somehow managed to make their relationship work despite constant public scrutiny. The private challenges had been harder than the political ones. Learning to navigate to completely different approaches to conflict resolution, intimacy, and daily life had required constant communication and compromise. Velra had struggled with human emotional expression, while Elias had worked to understand Thalari directness. But somewhere in those negotiations, they had built something uniquely their own. Honored strategist, a young voice interrupted. Corin, her brother, approached nervously. At 17, he had grown into the broad-shouldered warrior frame of their people, but his eyes held the same idealism that had once made him believe honor could overcome necessity. Brother, she greeted him formally, uncertain why he had traveled to Concordia. I came to apologize, he said in Thalari, then switched to Standard Galactic, and to ask if your colony would accept a disgraced warrior seeking redemption. Velra's heart clenched. What happened? I refused an arranged marriage contract, told the council that if my sister could choose love over obligation, so could I. His young face was defiant despite obvious fear. They declared me oath broken. I have nowhere else to go. Before Velra could respond, Elias stepped forward. Our colony will welcome anyone committed to peaceful cooperation between species. You'd be one of our first residents. You would accept an exile? Corin asked. We're all exiles of one kind or another, Elias said gently. That's what makes us family. Later that evening, after the council voted to approve their colony proposal by a narrow margin, Valera and Elias walked through Concordia's gardens. The artificial ecosystem housed plants from hundreds of worlds, creating impossible combinations of color and fragrance. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, stopping beside a flowering tree that bloomed in Thalari crimson and Terran gold. To build a new world from scratch? To raise children who belonged in neither of our original cultures, but somehow both? To spend our lives proving that love can be stronger than fear? She smiled up at him. "I've never been more ready for anything. Even if we fail, we won't fail. We might face setbacks, political opposition, even violence from extremists. But what we've built between us, this partnership, this choice to keep choosing each other, that's already a victory." He pulled her into his arms, spinning her round, until she laughed with pure joy. Round them, the impossible garden bloomed in defiance of natural law, proving that beautiful things could grow when different worlds learned to share the same soil. 6 months later, on the newly terraformed world of Haven, Valera planted the first ceremonial tree outside the colony's administrative center. Her hands, once trained only for warfare, now carried the seeds of future peace. Beside her, Elias programmed the settlement's first school curricula, designed to teach children that diversity was not something to overcome, but something to celebrate. Their marriage had begun as a diplomatic necessity. To strangers bound by political obligation, it had become something. Neither of their cultures had words for a partnership built on mutual respect, shared purpose, and the radical notion that love could be both chosen and fought for. In the years that followed, Haven would become a model for interspecies cooperation throughout the galaxy. But for Valera, the greatest victory was simpler. She had found her place not as a bargain bride or political symbol, but as a woman who had chosen her own path and the partner to walk it with. Every morning, she woke up choosing Elias. Every evening, he chose her in return, and in that daily renewal of commitment, they proved that the strongest treaties were not written on paper, but inscribed on hearts, willing to bridge any distance between worlds.